Joining me now to talk about Trump, America, and the world is Rيتشارد هاس. He is the President Emeritus at the Council on Foreign Relations and a Senior Counselor at Centerview Partners. So, Rيtchard, let's start with Gaza. You know that region very well. What do you think? You know, there are a lot of people who say, well, this is out-of-the-box thinking. Maybe it stirs things up. What do you think Trump's proposal on Gaza has done on the ground?
It's out of the box, but doesn't mean it's better. Just because the box isn't working. There's policy failures over the years. I think on the ground, Fareed, it probably plays into Hamas's hands. They can say, look, there's no chance of any compromise working. We right all along to be maximalists. For the Israeli right, this is, a gift from heaven. This is manna from heaven. Their whole policy is to deny Palestinian nationalism. Transfer of people out of Gaza is, for them, the perfect precedent. Because what they really want is transfer of 3 million more Palestinians out of the West Bank, or what they call Judea and Samaria. Plus, it shows, Freed, even more worrisome, if things get violent enough, it creates conditions which some will then point to and say, we therefore need to transfer. What does that do? It incentivizes the dynamic on the West Bank to become more and more violent. So Palestinians will get more radical, Israeli settlers and defense forces will get more combative. This is not a good dynamic.
So it encourages the radicals on both sides.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And what do you think Trump was thinking? You've talked to him. What's going on?
My own sense is he comes from a world of deals, and you can always sprinkle in new incentives. Oh, if this doesn't work, what about this? What about that? What I think he's missing from the world of real estate is this is not something that can be easily bought off. What are the two most powerful things? You and I have spent a lot of time talking about the Middle East. One is nationalism. Virtually everyone in the Middle East coming out of World War II wanted a state of their own. Zionism was getting a state of their own for the Jews. Palestinians and the Kurds have been denied it. This denies it and kills off the chance. Second of all, it reinforces humiliation. And what did we learn around 9/11 and other times? Humiliation is a dangerously powerful human motivator. So I think this is actually not only going to buy things off, but rather it's going to inflame the situation.
Right. You can't tell a Palestinian family, I'll build you a nicer house in Egypt. What they want is their own country.
100%. Man cannot live by bread alone. The idea that there's going to be a financial sop put forward that's going to assuage the desire for a country of their own is simply preposterous.
What else are you noticing in this? It's been 3 weeks. Sure. The fight with Canada, the fight with Mexico. Is there what's the broader implication?
One is being a friend buys you nothing. It's almost like everyone's equal. In some ways, it's worse to be a friend because you have more connections that can then be leveraged. We can threaten your security dependence. We can threaten our trade or investment. The other thing that I notice as someone who's worked for multiple presidents is the lack of anything resembling a serious policymaking process. There ought not to be surprises. You never want to send a president out there to propose something and someone says, well, hold it. Did you think about this? And say, take the Gaza thing again. What about the cost? What about troops? What about Palestinian reactions?
And you can see it was unthought through because he himself walked back half of that
within 24 hours. Yeah. That's what a policy process is meant to do, to anticipate how's everyone going to react, what's the context, what are the implementation concerns. It may be what seems to be a good idea, but then when you really put it under a microscope, not so good. And that's what we're seeing does not exist in the Trump administration on tariffs. We saw it. You put them on, you take them off. We see it now with Gaza. There's a haphazard quality to this, and a shifting number of players, special envoys here and there. This is not a process that is sustainable.
Now, you talked about the allies feeling there's no advantage to being an ally, maybe even a cost. What can they do? Is there a realistic, what's going to happen?
What I think allies are going to start doing, it'll be gradual, is diversify their portfolios. A country like South Korea is going to have a much more serious debate about nuclear weapons of their own. Other countries are going to say, like Colombia, we don't really want to have 4/5 of our economy dependent on access to the United States. Maybe we dial it down. Maybe, by the way, we bring in China.
The one unpredictable thing Trump has said, and he mentioned it once during the campaign, which might be a kind of good out-of-the-box thinking, is on Iran.
Right.
He seems there's something going on there where he keeps saying, I wonder if there's a deal to be had. I wonder, which is ironic because he pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal. What do you think is possible?
That's one of the two areas, the other being Ukraine. Surprisingly tough attitudes towards Russia. I think he was surprised and disappointed that it's Putin and not Zelensky who's the obstacle to a ceasefire on Ukraine.
Yeah.
Iran, he doesn't want to use force. I think he almost like, remember, he went from NAFTA to the USMCA, a better deal with Canada and Mexico on trade. Even though he pulled out of the 2015 deal, I think he wants now a better deal with Iran, what he calls a verifiable, peaceful nuclear agreement. And I actually think there's a possibility for it. The Ayatollah is saying no, but I actually think this administration would be wise to press Iran and essentially set up a deal on the nuclear. You reduce, you put a ceiling, you make it verifiable. We could ease some sanctions. You won't get attacked. I actually think that's worthy of exploration.
All right. On that optimistic note, we're going to end. Rيتشارد هاس, always a pleasure.
I support getting all the hostages out and meeting all our war goals that include destroying Hamas's military and governing capabilities and making sure that Gaza never poses a threat to Israel again.
Are you willing?
All three.
What he's talking about here are the day after issues and what role, if any, Hamas will have in moving forward and part of phase 2 of the ceasefire. It seems Netanyahu is seriously hedging on that answer.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because if you listen closely to what Netanyahu was saying, what the words that you just played, he's talking about getting the hostages home. He's talking about fulfilling Israel's war goals. You'll notice, and this is a nuanced difference, but you notice he's gone from saying to make sure that Hamas is never able to commit another October 7th style attack to making sure Hamas is destroyed. Now, we know that Hamas as an organization, as an ideology, cannot be destroyed militarily. And so we're watching very closely to see what words exactly he's using. And it does appear that he's trying to hedge, because what he hasn't discussed is Israel's willingness to enter into good faith negotiations over phase 2. Phase 2 is where Israel is going to have to make really significant concessions that go completely against what Netanyahu's right-wing extremist coalition partners want, which is a withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza and a commitment to a permanent end of the war. We also know that he hasn't been talking about phase 2, sorry, not phase 2, but the post-war plan in Gaza, where he keeps saying that there is no post-war plan in Gaza, when actually what the Arab states are saying, what the Palestinians are saying, including in my conversations with them, is that that plan is ready to go. The Palestinian Authority is ready to go into Gaza and take control. Hamas has publicly stated that they're not interested in governing Gaza and that they're okay with not doing so. And the Arab states have also stated their readiness to support the Palestinian Authority in conjunction with the international community as it tries to begin this new chapter after the war in governing Gaza. And so a lot of those really important conversations, you'll notice that Netanyahu did not mention, which really worries a lot of people about his willingness to actually enter into those phase 2 negotiations and allow a post-war plan in Gaza to actually unfold. Despite the willingness of the Arab states and the Palestinians to engage in those discussions, what they're saying to me is that they're not seeing that willingness reciprocated from Prime Minister Netanyahu.